All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We'll give everybody a minute just to get nice and comfortable, but we really, really appreciate everyone coming and joining and being with us here today. We have some fantastic information for you presented by Alfonso and Rafael. So without further ado, you're not here to listen to me talk, you're here for the information. So, guys, the floor is yours.
Hi, it's a pleasure, and I look forward to having a lively discussion and to give you some good information around calculating your budgeted hourly rate. This is really essential to understanding your true costs of what your production is and ensure that you're getting the right profitability. I'm Alfonso Hernandez. I'm the VP of Sales at High Flow Solution. I've been in the print and packaging industry for over 32 years. My partner, who's going to be supporting me, is Rafael Skronsky. He's our senior solutions architect and consultant, and he's also been in the printing and packaging industry for many, many years. Uh, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, but we welcome all kinds of questions. Feel free to type those into the chat, and Jack will read those off later, and we'll answer your questions. Real quick about who is High Flow Solutions. We were established in 1999. We are a family-owned independent software vendor. We are US based. Our headquarters is in Miami, Florida, with worldwide operations. Our solution is based on Microsoft technology, and we make ERP MIS solutions designed around the complexities of the printing and packaging production processes. Now on to our discussion. We're going to answer and go through a few things during this presentation. We're going to discuss what are budgeted hourly rates, how to develop budgeted hourly rates for your company, and discuss what are those components that are part of budgeted hourly rates, where to get the information and numbers that you need. We're going to go through an example based on one cost center, a label press, and show you how and as an example, how to produce your BHR. How to use BHRs in your estimating and job costing, your equipment costs and depreciation expenses, realizing and applying your manufacturing overhead, fixed and variable costs, uh, implementing and phasing in your updates for your BHR within your costing, and when and why you should keep your BHR updated. Let's start off with what are budgetly hourly rates. We're going to define it, give you the purpose of it, components of it, and using it within an MIS, but we're going to use that term interchangeable, meaning ERP MIS solutions that you're using in your facility. Budgeted hour rates are an estimated cost per hour of operating a piece of equipment, department, cost center, or an entire production facility. It's Investopedia calls that overhead rate, the cost of allocating to the production of a product or service. Modern MIS solutions take all those costs into account to do accurate job costing by factoring in machine, labor, material, and overhead costs. These standardized pricing and improves profitability and enables real-time quoting based on the actual operating cost. Additionally, BHR helps optimize resource allocation and adapt pricing dynamically to market changes, ensuring competitive and sustainable business operations. In other words, BHR are the minimum amount you must charge for your production equipment and services in order to break even and recover your costs. It is basically a cost per hour to operate and maintain any of your production equipment. Or it could be a service like handwork and and so on. A budgeted hour rate are really based on your actual costs, and what you project are chargeable hours on your machine. You could incorporate um, profit margin, but from our experience, it is added later in quoting. The purpose of BHR in an ERP MIS solution includes cost calculations and estimations. BHRs help determine the actual cost of running printing presses, finishing equipment, and prepress operations. And as we talked about earlier, any handwork that needs to be done, including material movement and shipping. They include fixed costs. This would include equipment, depreciation, rent, and variable costs, which include your labor, electricity, and maintenance. Accurate job pricing and quotation. The MIS system will use all these costs of your BHR to generate precise estimates for your customer orders and ensure that quotes cover all the expenses while maintaining a competitive price. Uh, it is helpful in profitability analysis. Help assess whether a job is profitable by comparing its estimated cost versus actual cost to produce. And we'll be showing an example of that later. Identifying cost savings opportunities and inefficiencies within your operation can be determined through this. But I should also add in that also as a business to determine what type of jobs is most profitable for you to take and understand when you have to give do a lower profit margin product for other purposes. It also helps with resource planning and investment decisions. It helps guide with equipment upgrades, staffing, and workflow optimization. Helps to set in setting production targets and machine utilization goals. And also standardization across operations. This ensures consistency in cost estimation across different departments, and that can include pre-press, press room, finishing products, and allows benchmarking against industry standards. Some of the components that we'll be going over later on how to calculate a BHR includes fixed costs. Now, fixed costs are items of your expenses that do not fluctuate and stay consistent during your financial period. So that can include leasing, costs of equipment financing, insurance, building costs. Variable costs, on the other hand, are fluctuating costs within your production. This includes consumable, energy, wages. Overhead costs are costs that are not directly related to the production, manufacturing production, but include things like administrative costs, IT equipment, other things that are needed for running your business, but are not direct manufacturing costs. And then your profit margins can be determined more effectively and precisely based on having a more accurate BHR. Here's an example of some breakdowns of the costs and some areas where different expenses are allocated to fixed costs, variable costs, overhead costs, and your hourly costs. I hope I'm making my old cost accounting professor proud of explaining this. Let's go into some of the step-by-steps of how to develop a budgetly hourly rate for your company. It comes down to five different steps. Identifying the cost components, allocating costs to each machine or department or call center, calculating the total cost per hour. The more important is validating and adjusting that price, so that you ensure that the accuracy of what you developed, and integrating this updated BHR into your ERP MIS system so that when you're estimating and quoting out to your customers, you have a most reliable, precise price of what your production costs are going to be. Now let's go into each step that I just outlined. Identifying costs. As we talked about before, you have multiple different areas that you need to gain all the costs related to the components to build your BHR. That includes fixed costs, variable costs, and overhead costs, as we discussed before. For operations managers, and production managers that might be producing this, this is where you're going to be interacting a lot with your accounting and financial team members to ensure that you're getting the precise costs of what's being spent currently in your for your company. Then you're going to be allocating each of these costs, as we talked about before, with each of your machines, cost centers, or departments. Fixed costs can be shared across different devices, and there's different ways that you can do that, including, for example, let's say floor space. You can divide up the square footage of what a cost center utilizes, so that you can allocate out what your cost of either your lease or your plant overall cost is, and apply it to that cost center. Variable costs, you need to garner everything that goes into each step of your production process. That includes even rags and fluids and everything that goes into that production from start to finish needs to be allocated. And then taking your overhead costs and proportioning it out to your production area properly so that you can gain all the proper costs. Afterwards, what we're doing is we're calculating our cost per hour, and that's your allocating out based on all your production hours within a month that you're expecting to do, versus your monthly costs. An example, if a machine's total monthly cost is $80,000 and you operate 160 hours per month, your BHR for that, in this simplistic example, would be $500 an hour. Keep in mind, it takes into account real possible hours of production. Let's say 2 shifts are running 320 hours only in theory. We need to exclude all downtime, planned maintenance, job shortages, such as employees calling out for sick leave or vacations. When you're assuming some level of billable hours based on historical data, keep in mind that to look at it over a longer time period so you get a more accurate monthly production hourly cost. And then this is a really important step that I feel that some people don't do after they make their calculations. It's really applying that BHR and then utilizing it on actual jobs in parallel to what you're running today, and refining as needed to ensure that your BHR is more accurate to your actual costs. Regularly updating BHR is really important. So your costs are correct, because you can have fluctuating labor costs, energy costs, raw material, overall inflation. And then you're integrating this new updated BHR into your ERP MIS system, because this is going to be utilized in your job costing, your quotations, and your profitability analysis. Implementing AI-based tracking to monitor cost deviations and um, optimizations would be really a useful a way of ensuring that your BHR stays accurate and up to date. Um, why do you need the BHR? Uh, it's about earnings. In other words, to know if you are earning. No matter if you do your estimates in a spreadsheet or a modern ERP MIS, in all those places, you need to put BHR in some system uh, um, so that you can know what your actual costs are for producing a product. This includes man-hour rates, manufacturing rates, and all-inclusive rates. But you will always need them to know your profitability, which allows for you to be able to give accurate pricing to your customers. This also goes into ensuring that you're paying out your salespeople correctly, that your profit margins are within in the expected results that you're actually doing based on the actual costs that you're spending. In you know in analyzing your post-production reports, your versus taking your estimated costs versus your production costs and your actual costs, you're able to uh, see how your overall costing is working within your environment, and where it needs to be adjusted. If you're having large variances from your estimated costs to your actual costs, this is a sign that BHR really needs to be updated. In an ERP MIS implementation, you should expect to develop your BHR uh, once you're building this out. A lot of people who are using spreadsheets, this was now going to be moved into an ERP MIS solution, or they have an outdated or older ERP MIS solution that's not taking into account all of their costs when they're estimating. Most of the time, your ERP MIS solution consultants can assist you with this, but there's other experts in the field also. If your BHR is incorrect, all mention analysis, including profitability, are going to be incorrect. Keep that in mind. So preventively, we're going to answer a couple questions up front. When you have when you should be updating your BHR, how often do you do it, and how much time do you spend on it? These are some questions that each of you should be considering. So many shops inherent rates from previous previous employers, owners, companies, estimators, previous analysis never really get reevaluated and updated on the annual basis. And with my experience, I have spoken to a lot of business leaders and business owners within printing and packaging organizations, and a lot of time these costings are not updated as frequently as needed. And just an example, let's go back to when um, um, COVID pandemic happened, we saw major changes and major fluctuations in material costs, labor costs, all different kinds of costs that now had inherently become affecting production. And that's why you need to really update your BHR as often as possible. Here's an example of a recent survey that a partner of ours did, showing how often a lot of companies in the industry are actually updating their BHR. And you can see that, 23% of people haven't updated their BHR in over 4 to 5 years. That takes into account when we had the pandemic. So, you can imagine how much this really can impact what your actual costs are. Some of these costs, include wages. Here's a perfect example from the Bureau of Labor Statistics of the fluctuation of labor costs during a certain period. But I just read yesterday in the Wall Street Journal that 22 states just enacted increases in minimum wage. And that, of course, is going to be affecting a lot of your employees' wages on your production floor. But this also you can be applied to things like energy, utilities, regulatory costs. Take BHR seriously. That's one of our suggestions, and implement tools to support how you're defining and updating these matrices. Make sure that the percentage of profit that your reports are reflecting really mean the actual profits that you're expecting to earn. And on our experience, we typically, when we're implementing an ERP MIS solution for customers, are suggesting to customers to at least update their BHR on a 6-month basis. But it really depends on how accurate your company wants to be with their costs. And notable changes that can affect all this is, the acquisition of a new customer, adding a new press, wage increases. We used to believe that, rates should be only updated on an every year basis, but the way the economy and businesses running today, 6 month is really a more realistic compromise to do. This will allow you to know what you're doing in your estimates, better forecasting of your profitability, knowing where it is your rock bottom of profit that you will work with when selling your services, and win more jobs because you actually know what it's going to cost you to produce something, and and you can determine what earnings you'll get out of it. Okay. The BHR cycle really is a cycle going around, working with accounting and payroll data, your annual budget costs and budgetly hourly rates that you're expecting to utilize, and the data you get back from estimating, pricing, win losses, and the costs that you have applied in your MIS ERP solution. This is all about theory so far, but let's take a real world example of a particular cost center like a press in a printing and packaging environment. We have based on our financial reporting of any company, either publicly or internally, we have a wide variety of expenses that are being utilized. Work with your accounting department to determine what those costs are and how they apply to your overhead costs and your production costs. So here, and we just picked Gallus as an example. It could have been a Mark Andy, Nail Peter, or a digital device. We're going to come up with your BHR on this device that we have implemented in our fictitious label plant. You can see that we have all of the costs listed out here, and we're going to go through each of the components. Let's first discuss our fixed factory costs. These are independent costs of production. They don't change if your production increases or decreases. So your rent, your lease, your other costs like production machine costs are all incorporated in these fixed costs. Our variable costs. These are the type of costs that are dependent on your production. So these costs will go up and down based on the increases and decreases in your production. This could include your any costs from suppliers, equipment repair and maintenance, wages to employees, inks, materials, all those will increase and decrease with changes in production. You also have costs for sales, general administration, and general costs of a company. These are all indirect costs that are not related to production, but are necessary to run the business. This would be your cost of your salespeople, your marketing people, your accounting people, supervisors, management. All these costs are part of SGA costs within an organization. And then determining what are our production hours. First, to come up with your production hours, you really need to determine your maximum hours available to run production within a specific year. Maximum production hours in a year can be based on 2040 hours per year. If you have 2 shifts, that can be 4,080 hours. And billable hours can be targeted towards 80% of production hours. So that would come down to 3,264 hours. So regardless of whether the equipment is running or not, you're still paying these labor costs when employees are on the shop floor. Keep in mind that if you are able to work more hours than 80%, really the rate may change, increase or decrease, and you will be more competitive, but it works other ways, or there's other ways to work around that. Working out your billable hours then is, sorry about that. Include determining how long your make-ready times are, setup times, running times, wash-up, cleanups. All of those go into your billable hours and how you divide it up per job and per client. On your billable hours, you don't want to include downtime, like no work time. So if you have, as an example, you're running production on a Saturday on one press, but not another press, you don't want to include those hours in your billable hours. And you definitely want to have some type of tracking software, shop floor data collection. So you're actually getting a feedback of how long those jobs are taking to being produced, how much that's going to be applied to your costs, so you get a realistic actual cost at the end of your job.
Yeah, so the tools in general efficient tools for supporting the data which is needed for this calculation is a key for a success. We asked one of the questions before, how much time you spend on recalculating the budgeted hourly rates. And to decrease this time, you need to have efficient reporting from your systems, whatever it is. And thanks to that, you can get the recalculated budget hours nearly by pressing of one key, and that's the aim, and that will allows you to be up to date and more competitive according to the rest of the comparing to the rest of the market. Maybe at the end, it's worth to mention some, because this was really neat theory, as you've seen, but some basics on things that everything starts from here. But sometimes some of our customers is asking us questions, what to do when you have some old machines which are totally paid out, cheap in running, and now you are acquiring new one which has a lease. The cost is pretty high, and this is then calculating about hours rate sometimes gives you the feeling that, okay, a new machine, it should be twice much than the old one. But in this case, the every estimation you will do for this new machine will be really high. It will be hard to sell any job for this machine. So of course there is multiple ways for making this more even. You can relocate some costs more on the old one machine, just to make it earn for the new one. And in this case, the all estimations will be closer together, and you will be easily getting jobs for as well the new device. When this subject is really wide, and sometimes some of the machines in some areas of industry are really complicated. I mean, for example, production of corrugated board, which is really energy the consumption of energy there is insane, and depending what kind of product you are producing, this energy level is totally different, and you would like to have different rate depending on the service and product which is on the machine. So the number of number of ways how to implement hourly rates is really wide, but the most important thing is to have total understanding what stands behind this rate. So when you are seeing $200 per hour, you need to keep in mind what Alfonso said, that this is valid under the condition that you will have 80% of time as a real production time. If the machine will be broken for 2 months because of lack of some supplies, you will this won't be valid. And in fact, in such situation, the hourly cost of this machine is peaking insanely. So this discussion might be wide, and this is very important to understand what is standing behind, because as Alfonso said, many shops has some rates from somebody who was doing some assumptions, and if after a year or two you are trying to use the same digits and you don't remember or you don't know what was the assumption, so you cannot trust this information.
Yeah, so like Rafael said, one thing is to make sure that you stay consistent on what costs are being applied, and if any new costs Let's take an example, a new regulatory cost comes into play in your state, that this is actually being applied now within your BHR. Another thing that Rafael talked about, older machines, but let's take into account also with the costs of running, let's say, a digital press, and making sure that it's not just the lease rate on the device and consumables, but also any click charges are applied to your variable costs. Make sure that you're going through every kind of cost that is associated within your production.
Yeah, so we hope that now this is obvious why you can see this $156. It's simply all your total costs, which are consisting of factory cost and administration and everything else, and then you are dividing this by number of chargeable or billable hours. So it's this is 3,264 hours, and in this case you are getting the hour rate for this specific press.
Oops. I want to thank Ralph for being on, and he's going to help me with answering any questions later on. But I just wanted to let you know that we were supposed to have someone else on this presentation. His name is Craig Press. He's a known expert in the printing and packaging industry, and his specialty is around this subject matter regarding budgetly hourly rates. And he has tools and solutions and consulting services around this information. And now we will open up the floor to questions.
I haven't seen any questions come back yet. So everybody, this is your time. Get your questions answered. But I really appreciate the information. I know I personally learned a lot. I know there's 33 of us on here, so someone's got to have a question. I'm
Well,
waiting for
if they're as bad a typer as I am, I'm sure it's going to take a minute or two.
it. That all happens. And there was a lot of information. It's a lot to digest. So, in good news in that regard, this was recorded. This will be posted on TLMI community, so you will be able to reference it at any time. So all that information will be there if you need to come back. And if you come up with questions in the future, right, you can reach out to us at TLMI and we will connect you. So we'll get you taken care of. Alfonso, I don't know if you want to give your email or information out there, if they want to reach out directly to you, but if you're comfortable with that, yep, there it is.
Okay, so here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me and we can put you in touch with any of our solution architects and consultants to help you with this and to explain further about this information. But on behalf of the TLMI Technical Committee, I want to thank you for your attention on this. And Jackie, I'm going to hand this off to you in the sense of talking about the printTHINK webinar series.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So let me pull up my slide really quickly. So the next one that we have scheduled, hopefully everyone's seeing my screen, is going to be on February 20th at noon Eastern. So same time as today's. And we've got some more great information, choosing the right digital technology, presented by Shane from Domino. So we've got some great information coming to you at our next printTHINK on February 20th, and we will continue this series. It will go all year, so keep checking tlmi.com and on community to get the most up-to-date information on when the next one is. And these are all recorded, so you will be able to go back in case you don't have the time and get this information, because as you learned today, it's really valuable information. You don't want to miss it, but we really appreciate everybody's time today. If you want to register for that one coming up, I just put the link in the chat, so make sure to click on that and fill out the information. But without further ado, I mean, I just want to say thank you to you both. We really appreciate your time and effort putting this together. I'll say it again, it was great information. I know I learned a lot, But if you have any closing thoughts on this topic, now is your shot, or we'll give everybody about 20 minutes back in their day.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you everyone for this opportunity to present this information that is really important to our industry. And you guys have a great rest of your day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you. That you got some comments in there saying great job. So fantastic. I will close this out, and I will see you all on the 20th, hopefully.
Thank you.